Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today here live from our 13th BatteryMBA Roundtable, talking about the perspectives on the future of batteries. And we have two fantastic speakers with us. Thank you all so much for joining us live here on LinkedIn, YouTube, but of course, especially also this current BatteryMBA cohort with us, the 13th cohort, about to wrap up this another program, another cohort. So very excited to talk a bit about some of the developments in the battery market, which we have seen and of course a lot discussed also in the last 12 weeks or so. With this, if you can go to the first slide, just as a quick overview, who we have with us today. And we're going to introduce our speakers just in a moment. But again, very excited to have us here. Of course, also my co-moderator, Shada. So we're really excited to have this conversation with all of you. But Cecile, Andy, already warm welcome. We're going to introduce you just in a moment for all of our audience. So if we go to the next slide, just as a quick one, who we are. Again, my name is Simon from Battery Associates. Our mission is to create a sustainable world through the power of people and battery innovation. And I'm super delighted to have you all here. We see you all as a really important part of that. And yeah, very excited to have you all on board. And yeah, Battery Pro is our consulting arm, Battery Labs, our innovation arm, and then Battery U is our educational arm. And yeah, BatteryMBA is also part of that. And yeah, we're really here as a knowledge partner to support the battery industry. And again, all of you doing amazing things. So we're very excited to have you with us here in this program, but also anybody else listening on all of these other platforms. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to quickly pass on to Shada.
Yeah, thank you very much, Simon. Shada here from BatteryMBA team. This is the slide we present BatteryMBA, our 12-week program. BatteryMBA has a proven track record in training professionals from top-tier organizations globally. Our participants comes from diverse profile. We have battery experts, engineers, tech managers, and executives in our cohorts, and we prioritize gender diversity in all our cohorts, maintaining at least 30% male-female ratio. And so our alumni represent 670 plus countries. Really, we have participants from all over the world, including industry leaders like Tesla, BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, and CATL. So with learners from 60 plus countries, the program offers a truly global perspective. Participants' feedback, you can see on the right, 95% of the participants would recommend BatteryMBA. 9/10 average satisfaction score, and 98% felt the program met or exceeded their expectation, that we are really proud of. And if we go to next slide, now we have a big announcement. And we love to have you join us for our next BatteryMBA, which is May cohort, starts on the 5th of May. And if you're excited about accelerating your career in the battery industry, please don't miss this chance to apply for our cohort. Applications are open until April the 21st, and you can apply using this link highlighted in blue, battery.mba/enroll. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get into contact with us. And you can always reach us at info@battery.mba. So I'm going to now hand over to Simon, and he will walk you through our community meetups.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shada. And yeah, I think a big part of it, and especially also I'm personally excited about this conference season has started. I already have been to a few last week, and there's more this week, and of course, many more to come this year. And yeah, that's a fantastic also way to connect with other participants and other alumni from the program. Here you can see some of them, from China and the UK. Germany, all around the world, really. Yeah, we have many meetups in the US as well, a few in Belgium, and many others. I'm not showing all of them here. And yeah, super, super excited to meet with you and the alumni. So again, the alumni here on the call, please make sure to look out for your email so you get invited to these meetups. Hope to see many of you in some of the meetups we have planned. And again, it's something we also believe it's very helpful to kind of connect. And yeah, the next big one for us also, where we have a lot of them, I think last year, 50 or so, we've met of you there, would be at the battery show in Stuttgart. But there's also a few other ones, so look out for them. You can just see here a few more events. India also have been last year, and other regions. So again, very excited to have more meetups. And also, if any of you are interested to step up more and also help us organizing more meetups, please get in touch. We're really excited to support you on that as well. With this, we can go quickly to the next slide. That's another event, again, online, which we're all inviting you to. Of course, all our BatteryMBA participants and alumni get special invitations there as well, but also that's open for everyone to attend. So everyone here on the call, even if you're not able to join the BatteryMBA program, you're really welcome to join us on the next Battery Day, taking place on the 25th of September. It's free for all, really supported by amazing sponsors. We already have a few really amazing sponsors lined up and some really cool speakers and panels. So please make sure to join that. Again, it's free for all. So we really have this as a great platform to connect with many of you online. Brilliant. I think with this, we can go over and really introduce today's speakers. And I want to pass it over to Shada to introduce our first speaker for today.
Perfect. So we have incredible panelists today with us, and I start with Dr. Cecile Pera. Dr. Cecile Pera holds a PhD in combustion modeling from INSA, Rouen, Normandy. She has been serving as director at Oracle Limited since May 2020, where she leads the company's strategic initiatives and drives innovation across its operations. With a strong technical foundation and industry insight, she plays a key role in shaping the company's vision and growth. In addition to her leadership role, Dr. Pera is a prominent technical communicator in the automotive industry, publishing high-impact content that reaches over 25 million views annually across her channels and client platforms. Her career spans pivotal roles in business development, R&D, and performance testing. At Convergent Science, she serves as a key account manager, supporting major clients with advanced simulation technologies. Prior to that, at Infinium, she led global R&D programs and managed performance testing in engine technology for key customers worldwide. Welcome, Cecile. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Fantastic. Then I will go next to Andy, and maybe already a quick word here for all the people joining us live. You can already put questions to our speakers right away. We're going to hopefully go through as many questions as possible later on. So just a quick invitation to already have, make sure you put your questions in. From experience, usually there's a lot of questions in the end, which is very tough to get through. So yeah, already as an invitation. But yeah, there's another person you might want to ask some more questions to, is Andy, Dr. Andy Palmer, who's a renowned entrepreneur and business leader with a career spanning across automotive, lithium-ion batteries, renewable energy, and business transformation. He's the founder and CEO of Palmer Energy Technology Limited and Palmer Automotive Limited. He holds key leadership positions in several high-impact companies, including Brill Power, Innobat, Hilo EV Limited, and Ionetic, where he contributes as executive chairman and strategic advisor. Dr. Palmer has also served in various executive roles, including CEO of Switch Mobility, President and Group CEO of Aston Martin Laguna Limited, and Chief Operating Officer of Nissan Motor Corporation. His leadership at Nissan was pivotal in the development of the Nissan Leaf electric vehicle. Dr. Andy Palmer is a distinguished academic with a bachelor from Coventry, master's of Warwick, and PhD from Cranfield and MBA from LBS. So wonderful to have you here, Andy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to be here.
Fantastic. Shada, do you want to ask our first question?
Yeah, perfect. My first question will be for Cecile. And so, Cecile, I want to just ask you a question about advancement in battery technology. And what recent advancement in battery technology actually excite you most, and why, of course?
It depends if you are talking just from a pure technology point of view or from a business point of view. But I would say going through cell to to body, cell to chassis is for me the most exciting things, because it starts to merge battery technology and chassis technology and makes quite a big challenge, of course, for the OEM, but really brings new opportunity, new way to manufacture, new way to make margin for the OEM, new way for thinking the vehicle, etc. So for me, that's the most exciting one, promising one.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's really for reducing the cost and increasing the energy density as well. It's quite important. And I want to know actually just maybe a follow-up question on which racing battery development would be desirable to transfer to mass production by 2030 for you?
On this one, it really depends what brings the most value for people. The things for racing are obviously optimized for what people need in racing, which is not necessarily what people need or want for daily life. But if I have to take one thing here, I would say probably fast charging. Really, when I say fast charging, I mean ultra fast charging, like in 3-5 minutes, like we start to see, is something that is pushed by motorsport and also is desirable by daily usage. So probably this one, even if I imagine a lot of people think about immersion cooling, for example, but I do not necessarily think, of course, I know there are a lot of things pushing for immersion cooling. Of course, it can bring some good things, but I prefer to talk about the ultra fast charging enabled by what other technology, maybe immersion, maybe by something else, because it brings value for the customer.
Yeah, definitely fast charging would get rid of one of the major concern, which is range anxiety in electric vehicles.
Yes and no, in the sense that ultra fast charging, if you can charge in 5 minutes, is not necessarily something that you, the public, need daily. Daily, people will continue to charge at home on slow charging, home charging. It's enough for daily use. It's just that people, if they really need to do a long journey, they can get ultra fast charging sometimes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for those insights. I think for the next question, we can continue with Andy, and I hand over to Simon for next discussion.
Thanks so much, Shada. Yeah, Andy, I mean, you have quite a distinguished career already, quite a few interesting stations there. Maybe to kick it off, I'd be quite curious to see, well, like here, but in the BatteryMBA, right? We'd love to talk about lessons learned, best practices. Would love to hear it from you, from your time at Aston Martin and Nissan, maybe some of your takeaways, some lessons learned, especially on the perspectives and the future of future mobility.
I mean, we could go in any direction with that, but I'll limit it to around the electronic software and battery areas, which is to say, really, you have to believe in the Moore's curve. It's real and it's alive. When I started the development of the Nissan Leaf in 2008, I think it was, there wasn't a battery manufacturer available. We had to invent one. We did a joint venture with NEC. I signed that joint venture. That created a company called AESC, which today, of course, is Envision. And as we started the development and as we went into production with the Nissan Leaf in 2010, the cost of the battery was around $1,000 per kilowatt hour. $1,000. Today you can buy for less than 100. So you've seen the increase in energy density. The Nissan Leaf at the launch was 24 kilowatt hours. Now most electric cars are 80 to 100. So you see the Moore's curve at work, whether you look into software, whether you look into electronic hardware, whether you look into batteries, you have to believe in that curve, that basically as you reach mass, costs come down, performance goes up. And the reason I pointed out is that a lot of the cynicism that I hear around the move to electric cars, the the public debate around the cost of electric cars, the worry about European and American companies committing to electric cars, they all miss the point that the Chinese have understood, which is you invest hard, you go hard, you commit, and basically you get to those economies of scale, and that's where your industry is going to win. And so, you know, that's really my learning from my career is the importance of thinking long term. Of course, you have to act in the short term, but you also have to believe in the long term, and you have to be aware of fundamentals like the Morse curve.
Brilliant. And maybe kind of touching on that, right? So you mentioned again that you didn't have a cell maker, like a partner at the time, so we had to create one together and sign these agreements. There's a lot of discussion at the moment, right? We also had some here in the BatteryMBA about the need for vertical integration, and also understanding how deep we have to integrate. And we have seen many different examples now from different OEMs taking different approaches there, right? How deep they maybe want to integrate, and how, if they want to make cells themselves, they want to partner, and what level. Maybe to kind of get your sense on this, where you kind of think at the moment, where do you stand, maybe also on the automotive side, but also I know you're also involved in a range of other battery-related companies. How do you stand on the topic of vertical integration? How much is needed to really kind of future-proof your resilience, but also kind of be as cost-effective as you can be?
I think the business model that you follow, whether you do it through complete integration into the company or you do it through partnership, doesn't matter. But what you have to recognize is the interdependencies. So when I was at Nissan, I always recall a huge argument between Nissan and Renault. You know, they were alliance partners at the time. As Nissan, in my responsibility, I likened the battery to that of an engine. And my argument was very much along the lines of, you wouldn't give your engine development away. You keep it in-house, it's fundamental. And that was my great belief, that Nissan needed a stake in its battery capability, AESC, because it was so fundamental to the view ahead. Now, my colleagues in Renault were much more of the view that the battery, and in particular the cell, was a commodity. You let the markets fight, it brings down the cost of the commodity, and you buy the commodity and you integrate. Neither were right or wrong, but what is important is that interdependency. So you've got to have a partnership with your battery maker, your cell maker, whether you own it or whether you buy from it. And that battery maker has got to have an interdependency with its anode and cathode maker, its separator maker, its manufacturer of electrolyte. So down the chain, that interdependency is very important. And as something as important as a battery going forward, you have to view it, I think, in the same way that you look at other important commodities. We've all seen what happens when you can't buy chips anymore. We had the chip shortage shortly after the COVID crisis. So it's a fundamental part of your supply chain. You need to protect it. You need to make sure that you've got it under control. Whether you own it or not, I think, is probably an irrelevance, as long as you've worked out those interdependencies. And of course, that's easier if it's part of your group than if it's part of your supply chain. But in either case, you need to have protected for it.
No, I think that's really important points. And I think case by case, right, at the end of the day, is quite important there. It's wonderful to see there's already quite a few questions coming in on LinkedIn and also here on our Zoom chat. So just for anybody listening right now. So this first part is public. So again, everyone on LinkedIn, please put your questions in now so we can still address them. We have about 20 more minutes, which is here live, and you can ask your questions on LinkedIn. And then, of course, we're also going to go through all of your questions here on the Zoom, all the current BatteryMBA cohort. So please also make sure to keep putting your questions in so we can also address them then in the second part. But for now, I have one more question also for you, Andy, and then I will pass it on to Shada to ask the first question from Ugur, for you, Cecile, and then also Gang. Your question, I will ask it to Andy, and then of course the other ones you keep posting. Andy, my kind of last question for now would be kind of looking at that. Yes, I think here the question would be talking a bit about policy and policy changes, right? I think it's a big topic, especially from a company perspective. What kind of policy changes would most accelerate the transition to electrified transport? Is it more like charging infrastructure, innovation, battery passports, any other thing you think could be important?
I mean, look, I'm an advocate of the free market. Let the market decide. The market is normally correct because ultimately it's the millions of consumers that make the decision in a particular way. But I'm also a great believer that at certain times in history, the market can be distorted, and you need a kind of Keynesian approach, which means that you need a partnership between at least the manufacturers and government, and maybe the manufacturers, government, and academia that brings it all together. So you need a policy. How I translate that, you could look to China with its one-party mentality, but of course that kind of management is a little uncomfortable for most of us. So how do you deal with that in a democracy? And if I look to the UK, and where perhaps I believe the UK made a mistake, is it doesn't have an industrial strategy, and therefore it's tended to waver depending on the color of the politics of the time. I'm a great believer that basically if you want to navigate through moments of big change, and particularly moments of policy consistency, you need a consistent industrial strategy. The industrial strategy sits essentially with a civil service that basically hold it irrespective of whether the color of the politics is red or blue. So I think that's probably my biggest takeout. Of course, if you want to boil it down to a really simple point of view, what car companies in particular look for is consistency. If you're consistent with your policy, if you're consistent with your direction, as for example Norway has been, then basically you're more likely to get investment into that and commitment into that than if your policy is changing every other week, as has been the case in the UK of late. So I guess the answer to your question is policy needs to be consistent. I would suggest that the best way of doing that is to embed it in some form of industrial strategy, and to sit that industrial strategy with a body that will maintain it almost irrespective of the politics of the time.
Great, thanks so much. I think there's some important points. Shada, you want to go next?
Yeah, perfect. And the next question from our LinkedIn Live participants, so audience, it's for Cecil. Ur's question here. And Ur asks, if in your review, Cecil, what are the critical success factors for companies aiming to establish competitive gigafactories in Europe, considering challenges like supply chain constraints, energy costs, and regulatory frameworks? Which companies do you see as the best positioned to success in this landscape?
Ooh, interesting. Indeed, recently in Europe, we have not succeeded in making a good gigafactory. And probably I would have said a few months ago that I thought Northvolt would make it. I thought Northvolt was relatively well positioned in the sense that they have been working for quite a long time, but I've been wrong, obviously. I think the main problem I see in gigafactory in Europe, and for me, one of the causes that we have trouble, is that we have been quite arrogant, I think, and also we have minimizing the difficulty of making battery, because we are coming from a world where we have produced and developed internal combustion engine, for many, many years, and all of these rely on metal, so all of these are processes we know very well. But because batteries for consumer electronics, for smartphones, for computers, and so on, it was seen in the past as relatively dirty job. So we have put this and say to other country, especially to China, okay, look after that for us because it's just annoying for us to do this. And obviously, they have gained experience. And what we are missing in Europe is experience. So we need to know that not necessarily, it's not that we don't need to understand what we are doing. Of course, we need to understand what we are doing. But sometimes experience teach you that you thought this would be a good solution because this is this. But when you try this, obviously, it's wrong because it goes wrong for something you have never thought about. So because we have not really taken the learning curves in the sense of earning our knowledge, we have tried to leapfrog thinking we can do this. Today, we pay a big price because we are lacking just experience. So knowledge, I say that all the time, knowledge, we need more knowledge, we need more learning, we need more experience. And the last thing is mindset. Because again, we in Europe like process, and very often I hear people saying, oh, no, we cannot do this because we have never done like that. It's not possible. But then you can see that some other people, sometimes it's Chinese people, sometimes Korean people, sometimes Tesla, whoever, they succeed to do something we thought was not possible because we stay with an old mindset and sometimes old learning curves and so on. So more learning, more knowledge, more experience in the sense of learning from failure and mindset.
Yeah, thank you very much. Interesting because China really ahead of us and they know how to use the machinery, and we don't know that knowledge with many years of experience they acquired this knowledge. And I think with innovation in battery field, maybe we can one day get ahead of Chinese competition. But at the moment,
innovation is one thing, but innovation without the learning curves, I think it's difficult because you imagine something which is innovative, but even sometimes people even don't know what really exists. Sometimes I review projects where people say, we are going to do this. And you're just like, okay, but that's already 3 years ago that whoever is already doing this. People just sometimes they just don't know what exists because they rely on just what have been published. So they just forget where we are today. They know where we were 3 years ago, but they have no idea where we are today. And even worse, they don't know where their competitors are already working for the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. They have absolutely no idea.
Okay, yeah. That's a fair point. And so I think I hand over to Simon now.
Thanks much.
Another a question for Andy now.
Thanks so much. Maybe also a quick one. I mean, Andy, is there anything you want to add from your experience and your insight on making gigafactories in Europe a success based on your early experience with the ambition?
Tough. It's really tough. Making batteries is tough. And I think I was involved in obviously the very early development of AESC's batteries, and we made an awful lot of mistakes. But we started 15 years ago. What I see, it's hard to say this because I am, but there was a certain arrogance around bringing battery technology into, let's say, into the European timeframe or the European space, where it was believed that it was just another manufacturing, it was just another thing. And we lost a lot of time as Europe, and we haven't learned the lessons that companies in Asia, and by Asia I mean Japan, Korea, and China, those lessons learned, and particularly China, because of their industrial philosophy, they've ramped up to massive volumes quite quickly, and that's allowed them the economies of scale. And it was said that China is ahead. I think that China is 10 years ahead, and it's really difficult to catch that back. And I think you've got to adapt a little bit your mindset to one of contrition, that you've got to accept that you're behind, and you've got to try and learn from people that you previously thought were behind you, they're now in front of you. So there is some merit, I think, in getting into collaborations with Chinese, Korean, Japanese battery makers, particularly Chinese battery makers, I think, in order to relearn the basics. It's a fact that European industry has tried to move with its own, and very few of our battery makers have made it. Northvolt being the biggest obvious casualties, but you know there have been others, and we can't afford not to make batteries on this continent, because if you don't make batteries, you don't make cars. So we've got to learn, and perhaps one of the ways of learning is through collaboration with the Chinese management, and the other is to listen and learn from what the Chinese did, which is to leapfrog. So I would suggest the easiest area to leapfrog in is in battery control, where we're still relatively good at software and hardware and the management of the batteries, not necessarily to try and keep following in the chemistry. My great belief is that batteries can be divided into three big categories, 3 C's, chemistry, cooling, and control. We've kind of lost the battle with NMC and lithium phosphate. So you've got to leapfrog to what is the next. My argument, I think, would probably be it'd be solid state on one view, and it would be sodium ion on the other. But you also need to try and get ahead in the area of cooling. And I think we can still win in the area of control. So that's where I would put my emphasis of win in control and try and catch up in chemistry.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Andy. And you're kind of perfectly putting, the transition to the next question, which from Gang Hu, who's asking exactly about the topic of solid state. You just touched on it next to sodium ion. And he's asking, can you comment on the prospect of solid state batteries? It could be the penetration rate in the next 5-10 years. Could it be a predominantly technology route among polymer oxide, sulfate electrolytes, and different application sectors?
What I love about the battery industry is it's still relatively nascent. So it's a bit like the car industry at the turn of the last century. It's still lots and lots of inventions. We're still high up that Moore's curve. So there's lots of innovation going on. And it would be extraordinarily arrogant of me to predict what the future is, because there are so many potential directions. But I'm going to have a go anyway. So I think there are two trends that are very important. Trend number one is really about energy density. It's about how you pack enough energy into the battery that you can reach the performance levels that you might need in a racing car, all the way down to the distance you might want to travel in a bus, for example. And there you have this curve of sort of NMC, whether it's 622 to 811, low silicon, high silicon, the move into semi-solid state, and eventually solid state. And I think there is no given solid state. There are many definitions of it, but it's evolving through many iterations. But you've got that general curve towards high energy density. But I don't think that we can assume that everything is going that route. There is a need for low-cost chemistries defined today by LFP, and defined by that need for not necessarily high energy density, but high cycle life. And I think there's some really interesting stuff around how you keep the price low, how you keep the cycle life high. Sodium ion is one of the solutions. I'm sure that there are others, but I think you need that route as well. So probably two routes, two trends. I don't see them coming together anytime soon, but I see the need for both. And so at the extremes, something like solid state for air transportation, the drone type situations, and for energy storage, probably more along the low cost, lower energy density type of solutions, both of which, by the way, need very good electronic control, both of which need very good cooling. So there is some consistency in the middle around areas where we can still win.
Appreciate it. And I think there's one kind of follow-up question I just see here now, just for you, and then also maybe we can go to you, Cecile, and ask a similar question about technologies you're seeing. There was a question for you about your recent leadership roles at Podpoint, Everati, and Innobat, how they envision the integration of advanced battery technologies and charging infrastructure and accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles globally.
So I think I put the move to electric vehicle as a kind of consequence of something bigger. And something bigger is the way that we consume electricity, the way that we consume energy in an environment where we see rapid climate change. My great belief is that our energy needs to be decentralized and democratized. We need to put the power of electricity with the consumer, not with the big companies, and the ability to allow the consumer to decide how they charge and discharge energy is really important. So in the future, I believe that every house will have a battery. That battery will allow you, for example, to charge the battery at a cheap rate overnight and discharge back to the grid at an expensive rate during the day. That makes your electricity cheaper. You can gather the electricity by the grid or by solar, and that you can use the combined saving to run your heat pump or run your electric car, hence the electric car connection. Ultimately, today, I think there are two impediments to the fast rollout of electric cars. One is the cost of the car itself, and that needs to come to parity. And that parity is helped if you can reduce the size of your battery, but no one's going to agree to reducing the size of the battery if it increases range anxiety. So you've got to have a prolific rollout of charging infrastructure, whether it's fast chargers or it's home chargers or it's work chargers. But that would allow car companies to create city cars with smaller batteries, get you to more close to a similar cost as an internal combustion engine. But the area where you don't look for parity is in the cost of running the car. And today, the cost of running the car is still too high, even if it's lower with an electric car. What you need to get it to is some part of your travel needs to be for free. And I believe that the integration, the decentralization, the democratization of electricity, the ability to store electricity at your house, charge your car basically for free. So ultimately, some part of your travel is for free. Now, then what's not to like about electric cars? They cost you the same as an internal combustion, but you run them for free. My belief is that that would satisfy 80% of the consumers out there, rather than the 20% that only look at electric cars as a way of saving the planet. So you move it from a climate countermeasure to an economic countermeasure, and you're going to attract a much bigger cadre of future customers.
Fantastic. No, thank you for sharing that many aspects in there covered. Shada, you want to bring up the next question?
Yeah, I just want to ask Cecile, which key aspects do you think should be taken into consideration for the future of batteries? Cecile, what?
I don't understand what you mean. What
Is it, example, is it like...
I think we lost her there. I think she wants to say, is it more about, battery materials like silicon anodes, the fast, charging rates, new technologies for stability against, dendrites and safety, manufacturing techniques.
But my question is much more if we are talking about battery cells or if we are talking about battery pack, which because it's slightly...
Let's do both.
Yeah. So I know most of people focus on battery cells, and most of the topics we talk are about NCM, LFP, and supply chain and material here. I am much more a person with a system view of the full battery pack. For me, all this material makes sense only if they are well engineered, so they work all together. What I mean is that you can take something specific or something which can be less good maybe on paper, but can be more optimized. And it's exactly the case, for example, for LFP. Because if you, for a long time, like on LinkedIn 3 years ago, everyone was saying, oh no, LFP is not good because NCM get much more energy density, so NCM is going to win, and so on. But now that people realize that if you combine LFP with cell-to-pack, with a simpler cooling system and a simpler cooling strategy, then it can be very, very optimized also for margin point of view. So for me, this question of material and all you put your money on or bet it's going to be better than other needs to be seen as something globally. So people talk about vertical integration, but much more on how you will put that nicely engineering all together. And the magic of this and the beauty of engineering here is that there is, of course, not one unique solution. So like Andy said previously, there will be different routes, some going for solid state, some going for LFP, some going for maybe more adapted for aircraft or for marine or for so on. And it is where all the OEM, manufacturer, and so on can bring their value because they have understanding of all the jigsaw pieces they can put together that will work and make sense only when they combine together. But individually, for me, there is no answer if you take the material or the technology or the component just on their own.
Thank you for sharing that. And then as a final thing we have now is also a poll on LinkedIn. Shada, maybe you want to share that just quickly, and that's kind of final thought. We have many more questions, so really appreciate it. I think, other questions which came in now from Mark and others. So we cannot go through all of this, unfortunately. But hopefully maybe some of our speakers can maybe also, if you're willing to go, I know you're quite active on LinkedIn as well, Cecile and Andy, maybe if you have a moment, you feel free to also have a look at some of the questions for you there, and maybe we can address some of them later on as well. But just for now, maybe Priya can bring up the poll, and then Shada can walk us through quickly, and we get the thoughts from Cecile and Andy.
Yeah, we're going to bring up the poll now, and we can take your thoughts on that. This poll actually we ran to understand what the industry believes should be the top priority for automotive companies focusing on electric vehicles over the next 5 years. So the question was, can you see the question on screen?
I think it's still loading, but you can already read it out.
Yeah, I can read it up because in the interest of time, the question was, what strategic shift should automotive companies most urgently prioritize for EVs in the next 5 years? So the overwhelming majority chose battery and charging advancement. As you can see, 52% advancement in battery and charging infrastructure should be the top priority. This aligns actually with the growing concerns about the range anxiety and charging accessibility. And the 34% was the vertical integration for cost. So cost control and supply chain resilience was also important for the participants, especially with battery materials, and chip shortages maybe in recent years was an example of that. And 14% e-mobility as a service. There's a growing interest in e-mobility, but perhaps it's seen as a longer term play. And the last one was infotainment and software. And no one chose this option. Maybe it wasn't seen as a urgent, although important, comparing to other more fundamental aspects. So any comments on this poll? And
Yeah, I have a comment here.
Yeah, Estelle.
I think it is important to remember on this poll that the answer is sampling by the fact that you are touching battery people, because obviously you are battery associates, so people answering this question are battery people. I think if you ask this question to a broader audience, I'm pretty sure infotainment and software will get a much larger audience. I go to shows and exhibition at Embedded World or people for NVIDIA, software, chips maker, and so on. So I think this question is, for me, some kind of misleading, because we are just sampling the answer by what we want to hear, because battery people are answering battery questions.
I agree with Cecile. Software-defined vehicles is one of the big trends in the industry. The way in which we develop cars is changed by the way that we develop software. A lot of the issues around software, Volkswagen comes to my mind immediately with the problems that they had on the ID.3 and the ID.4, are because they tried to develop software like they developed hardware. And it doesn't work. It's a different way of developing. And so I think the management and the development of software in a software-defined vehicle is really quite an important part of the future. And given that the future is basically around electric vehicles, that the two are interconnected. I don't deny that there's a lot of strategic importance in battery and charging, that the vertical integration of costs, Cecile mentioned at the very start, I think, around the cell to pack, cell to chassis moves, which is all part of the integration of the technology into the car. That's also very important. Maybe e-mobility as a service is a trend that has gone away for a while, but I don't doubt that it may come back as we think about the way that we move in future. But maybe it's more of a macro trend. But I would say that 0% for software is probably not correct if you look at it as a car maker, but might be important in this forum.
Blaine, I think it's a very fair thought and very fair point. I agree with you. It's always, you can only, get the response from your audience, Yeah, I think it makes sense. We have a lot of battery people on here. These are redeveloped points. For now, this actually means we're going to conclude the public part. So I just want to thank everyone for listening live right now here on LinkedIn. You've been very active. Again, there's more questions, Mark and others. So you have Andy and Cecile, in case you have time later, to have a quick look there. I'm sure they would appreciate your thoughts on some of these additional topics. Also want to share, we have now spoken quite a bit about automotive. I know there's a lot of battery BESS stationary enthusiasts out there, and there has been a big representation also in this cohort. And I already know in the next cohort, we have quite a bit focus on BESS already. So yeah, just to kind of share that, as we just have been touching on one technology for now. But I can already see here there's many, many other questions from this cohort. So to make sure we now go over to that. And again, just for now, really appreciate everyone for listening in on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you want to join, you're welcome to do so. Again, you can apply by the 21st of April for the BatteryMBA cohort 14, which starts on the 5th of May. So hopefully see many of you there. But for now, thank you all for joining. We're going to now close the live stream and see you all here in the cohort.